Shalom, this is Daniel Stern from Netivyah in Jerusalem, and today I wanted to talk to you about shields. There are many types of shields. The Spartans had a quote where they would say to soldiers going off to war to come back with their shield, in other words, in victory, or on their shield, in other words, as a corpse. This was in order to encourage them to have honor and not flee from battle. And of course, Alexander the Great had his phalanxes, which were shield units with long, long spears that were one of the most impressive army groups in the world. Unfortunately for Alexander, or not for him because he was long dead, the Roman legions' shield walls were, while not superior as a whole, were superior in difficult ground fighting. They had more versatility. Anyways, shields and shield walls have been an important part of military warfare. But today, I'd like to talk with you about human shields. Yes, you heard me. Human shields. Unfortunately, in modern warfare, there is no longer battles of armies against armies, standing on the field of battle, facing each other, such as during the Napoleonic Wars, which you can see in the movie Napoleon, in theaters near you soon. And the armies would stand facing each other and take turns. They would even take turns shooting, and then the other side would shoot until one side would have enough casualties and would flee and break and lose the field. But today, in urban warfare, in modern warfare, and you can see this as early as World War II, you can see that combatants on both sides use humans, civilian population, either as a weapon. For example, when the Japanese bombed the British in Southeast Asia during World War II, they bombed civilian industrial and industry in order to pressure the British to surrender, or as shields, which you can see in Slobodan Milosevic in Yugoslavia, when he would have his forces intertwined within the cities, within the civilian populations. Now, one might ask, why would someone use human shields? Well, you'd think that I, as the army defending a certain country, let's say, for example, if I were a member of the Hamas, and my supposed job would be the benefit of the Arabs living in the Gaza Strip, I would want to protect them and keep them alive and keep them safe. But currently, the Hamas uses human shields, Arabs, not Jews, but Arabs, as a shield. What does that mean? Well, when the Jewish country and the IDF and Israel weigh on the balance what damage they're willing to inflict in order to achieve their goal, that goal being to defeat an enemy, to destroy a base, to destroy weapons, they weigh the collateral damage. Let's say, for example, if they're able to defeat 50 enemies and the collateral damage is one civilian, I've never been inside an operations center. I don't know how they work, but my uneducated common sense says they'd be willing to pay that price. But if it was the reverse, one enemy and 50 unarmed combatants, unarmed civilian non-combatants, civilians, they would say, wow, the price is too high. It isn't worth it. We'll do it another time. So then, if said enemy surrounds himself with 50 civilians, those humans, are shielding him. I realize that this video sounds like a tutorial for 5-year-olds, but bear with me. And in this case, the Hamas is embedding itself inside civilian populations, partially because Gaza is a very dense area, twice as dense as Manhattan, New York City, I should say, and partially because it serves them. It is their benefit to surround themselves with non-combatants, with civilians. It makes the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, think twice about attacking a location. Are they willing to have the potential collateral damage be higher as a result of the Hamas's actions? Don't get me wrong, Hamas is fully to blame for putting itself, its fighters, its bases, its weapons, for attacking from mosques, schools, play yards, UN positions, humanitarian places, hospitals. All of this is done. In 2014, during Operation Protective Edge, Hamas fired missiles every night from the lobby of the hotel that the foreign journalists stayed in, because it knew that the IDF would not attack this hotel. There are records, videos, you can look for it on YouTube, of the journalists, the foreign journalists, saying that during that time, in Operation Protective Edge, the Hamas shot missiles every night from the hotel that the foreign press had stayed in. They were endangering the foreign press. They were doing acts, criminal acts of warfare that are unaccepted by all international conventions. It is endangering of the foreign press, of the civilian, of the non-combatants. It puts a target on these locations. Not only that, but during this current operation, the IDF spokesperson and his unit have constantly, in Arabic, been telephoning and sending pamphlets and broadcasting requests since the beginning of this war for the non-combatants to move from Area A to Area B and Area B to Area C and whatever. Originally from the northern part of the Gaza Strip, the Gaza City, down under Gaza River, Gaza Valley, to where they would be relatively safe. And they opened up corridors where they would make sure there was no combat. And you know what? The Hamas did not let the civilians leave. Why did they not let them leave? Because they need the human shields. They need to protect themselves, and if more people die, us in our Western sense, it doesn't make sense. But for the Hamas, the more Arab civilians die, the better for Hamas. It sounds crazy, but it erodes at the world's support for Israel. They are strategically, they are happy to have civilians die. Those same civilians that they're supposed to be protecting, they are happy to have die because it erodes the legitimacy of Israel's ground assault and general offense. So, when the army opened the humanitarian corridors, the Hamas did not let people leave, shot at people who left, even shot and wounded people and left them to die on the streets. There are records of people who were left on the street after wounded that unfortunately died. Now, it's very popular and fashionable and trendy to blame Israel for genocide, blame Israel for killing Palestinians, but the truth is that the majority of these civilian deaths happen, even if they happen at the hands of Israeli munitions, would be avoided if Hamas did not intentionally and deliberately use human shields. Hamas embedded itself within civilian population and does not let them leave. There are videos of operation where Israel, which once again is so, you might, obviously, if you're watching this, I hope you believe what I'm saying and don't think that I'm lying to you intentionally. But if you believe me, then there's videos of Israel using a technique known as knock on roof, where they drop a very small bomb on a roof that they intend to target in order to give time for the civilians to evacuate, and then, a little bit later, drop a second, larger, real bomb in order to finish off the target, which usually is not a person, but rather a location, an ammunitions depot, a base, a control center. So, there's a video of such an event where the first bomb is dropped, and you see the civilians scatter in from within the building, and then a moment later, you see them all running back and going onto the roof of the building, because they were ordered by Hamas to go back to the roof to act as human shields. And indeed, that building was not bombed. The IAF, the Air Force, made the decision that the target would not be worth the collateral price. Because Israel, again, if you believe me, is the most humane military in the world, dealing with the most inhumane monsters, horrendous people, cruel butchers. And consequently, these butchers, these Hamas, are forcing a situation where Israel, in order to defend itself from massacres and kidnappings, like we saw on October 7th, has to take action that unfortunately result in greater casualties due to Hamas's use of human shields. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. The British colonel who led the forces in Iraq and Afghanistan says the same thing. Says that Israel has done more than any Western army to protect civilians in the combat zones. Look him up. Thank you for this time that you spent with me talking about human shields. I would be remiss if I did not mention that in the past, the IDF had a procedure called the neighbor procedure, where it would use Palestinian civilians as human shields to protect themselves from Palestinian terrorists. This procedure was stopped by the courts and has not been used for many years. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. That procedure existed, but it has been stopped. And of course, the harm that it caused was far less in numerical numbers than the terrorist human shields. And I must add that unlike our terrorist Hamas friends, quote unquote, when the IDF attacks, it targets the military, the enemy fighters, the enemy installations. Unfortunately, as we just talked about for this whole video, they're embedded within civilian targets. But when the Hamas attacks indiscriminately. They attack hospitals and schools and anything and anyone that they can kill, they're glad to kill. They do not focus and target the military only. They target everyone. So they attack from a hospital to a hospital. It's a double war crime. God bless you all. Join us for more. Share this with your friends.